Hands. How many people, when they hear the word business plan, have this emotional reaction to that term paper third year in high school for the English teacher who you hated? Can I see? That's what business plan does to people. And yet, if we're going to run our lives doing what we like and make enough money to have a life, then we're going to be working this process. It's planning process. Another analogy, I live in Eugene, Oregon now. We are 2 hours from Portland over a highway, well, it's I-5, but it's every bit as boring as I-5 from Davis to Fresno, for example. It's straight, right? Like this picture. And yet, if you think about it, even on I-5 in the Central Valley, or up in Oregon, when you're steering, you're constantly doing little motions. Now, as I think it was Sam in the last presentation said, sometimes it's, oh my God, veer left. And that can happen too. But even when things are going well, it's still walking, steering, constant course corrections. That's also what goes on with planning. We're not doing a document, we're running a company, and one of the things we do is look forward, look up, look down, set tracks, and constantly review, and that becomes management. And that's at the core of what I'm talking about with business planning. It's setting your steps. Let me give you, if you think about the process of walking, every step I lose my balance slightly. Think of the little babies somewhere between 1 and 2 that start to walk. You're moving forward and thinking about it, but there's uncertainty, and over a while you get more and more certain about it. Business, like programming, like a lot of other things, is also, if you do it right, trying to look forward, set the steps, and keep going. Business planning, which then becomes management, is also very much like setting your steps and deciding where you're going to be going. It's very important that we understand it like that, because there's a lot of mythology in this area of business plan, you know. And I want to show you an example. That is not the term paper that you hated third year in high school, okay? That, in its grandest definition, is a business plan. That's it right there. How does that work? Well, we'll get into that more, but you want to start with something. It's moving ahead. In this particular case, somebody sat down and looked at things and decided, well, how many downloads, how many users, how much revenue do we get per user? This is kind of an advertising model. And so how are we going to be? They were guessing. One of the problems that you have is you think somebody else knows or something. They were just guessing, but they wrote it down. Why did they write it down? One of the best reasons to write it down isn't because you're going to show some investor someday, and maybe you are. You know, I've been there. That's okay. But whether or not you're going to show some investor, if you write it down, then later on you can't lie to yourself. I've discovered as I get older that I don't get dumber, I get smarter, because my memory edits, and suddenly I guessed everything right in the past. So we do that, we trick ourselves. But if you write something down, then it's pretty easy. Remember, this is business planning. There's another set of numbers. Those numbers mean nothing to you, right? It's just, here's what's going to happen, here's what actually happened, but then comes this. Simple math. It's not a high school term paper. Anybody can do it. Now, suddenly, 2 months later, having taken the 10 minutes to write something down and then do the little trick to compare plan versus actual, we start to see things. This is why we're doing it. Now we're steering. Now we're managing already. I mean, you know, the business plan that took 6 months? No. But already in our head, we're starting to manage this. wait a minute, downloads. Downloads were supposed to be 2,500, but it turns out they were only 1,763. Before we go on, we're thinking, we're optimizing. That's why I say even a simple sales forecast, you've started to do business planning, because if you're human, you don't have to be just a numbers person. If you're human, you're relating those numbers to what's going to happen, and when they don't happen, by the way, we'll get to that later, but just as we talk about, oh my God, this person guessed wrong, I have been dealing with business plans since 1974. I have never seen a business plan that was right, okay? All business plans are wrong. This one was wrong, right? The red there shows how it was wrong. They guessed 2,500, but it was 700, and it was 1,763. And so how was it wrong? It was wrong by that much. Oh dear, we had that many fewer downloads than we thought we were going to have. That starts the management. That's why you do it. Maybe the world turns and you end up having a relationship with a potential investor, and then there's some communication things. Maybe you need to get people on track in your team, but that's essentially why you're doing it. Because now you're going to have management. You're going to be asking, did we guess wrong? Did the market change? Or did we do something wrong, and what do we do now? And now we have business planning, and now we have management, and now we have a reason for what I'm calling a business plan, which is really the first step to business planning. And with that, you start to see, okay, here's why we're doing it. Because the business plans have a bad name. People think of them as that term paper, but nobody wrote a word here. But already we're starting to see how this gets us to start being a line instead of a dot, and now we're moving forward, and we're looking at where we were, and we're starting to manage, because humans can't help that. If you're involved in this company and you see that, you're going to be thinking about what else you're going to do, how to build that number, one number better, and how to do everything. That's the way we work. That's the way we think. It's a new world, right? We used to measure. Now, decades of this, right? We used to measure productivity by how warm the seat was for how many hours, right? We can't anymore. It's not just business planning, it's management. That's crazy. We can't do that. We measure productivity by something else, and the something else depends. It might be lines of codes. It might be in some of the business I'm involved with now. We're measuring productivity by tweets and retweets and followers and Facebook updates. But not warming seats, right? So what do you do to measure productivity? Well, there's where business planning comes back, because lo and behold, a simple, efficient, small, manageable business plan gives you, for those steps that I was talking about, you're putting forward metrics, measurements. How many downloads should we get? How much revenue per user? How much burn do we have with users? How much do they unsubscribe? We set numbers forward, and we're guessing, but as time goes on with the steps, by having recorded those numbers and recorded how they were wrong, we start to get management.